there. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Port of Beans podcast. My name, as you know it, is Afrowendy, and I'm really excited to be here with you. It's been a while since I set up a camera and had a microphone to record a podcast episode. It's been about a year or more? It's been more than a year. Well, I did an episode earlier featuring someone. And so if you want to check that out, please do. But this is a solo episode. It's just me here. And before we start this episode proper, I probably should catch you up on all I have been up to since the last time I officially set up a camera and recorded an episode. Okay, so what has been up since? So your girl got her master's degree. Yay! This is really exciting. So yeah, I got my master's and I started my doctorate degree. Yes, to that as well. Why did I decide to get a doctorate degree? Honestly, I am very much intrigued and anticipating the title of doctor. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your girl is about to answer the title doctor. So from when I graduate, I would only answer to Dr. Afrowendy or Doctor, my last name, Doctor. If you call me anything other than Doctor, me and you will fight. No. Me and you will fight. I will tell you what, this doctorate degree is trying to take away my soul and my body and my everything, but the Lord will not let it happen. He will not let it happen. Amen and amen. Okay, so if you're just joining the podcast, if this is your first time you chanced upon this video, this is the Port of Beans podcast, okay? And we make conversations really easy. It's fun and exciting as well. So please hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this podcast. You can also listen to this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, this podcast is available nationwide, internationally, everywhere that you listen. Okay, thank you very much. And if you are a return listener, look at you being loyal. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming every time that I have a podcast and listening. It means the world to me. It does mean the world to me. So thank you so much for your support. And I do hope that you continue to listen. And I do hope that I am able to meet your expectations. It's a great responsibility. I would not even take it for granted. So thank you. All right. So it's been a long introduction. We are 3 minutes into the introduction. Let's get into the podcast proper. All right. So aside getting a doctorate, I am really trying to get into the groove of starting this podcast again. I started this podcast in 2020. If you have been a long time listener, you would know this. And I've been on and off, but please, if you can, for a little bit, or just cut me a little bit of slack, I will really appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for your understanding. But yeah, I'm trying to restart this podcast, and I do hope that with your continued listenership and with your continued support, I'm able to stay consistent and release exciting episodes like the one I have for you today. All right, so today, honestly, we're going to talk about the trials of an international student. This is something I know very well because I have been an international student for almost 4 years now. So I do have experience in that regard. Thank you very much for that very important question. Yeah, we're going to talk about the trials of international students, especially because this is a really critical time. As if you're in the US. Deep breath. If you are in the US, you know that a lot is going on. At this time. It is a critical period and sometimes uncertain period if you are an international student. But with God by our side, there is nothing that we cannot do. Amen. Amen. But again, if you're in good status, I don't think there's anything to worry about. But yeah, we really should talk about, some of the trials that international students go through or encounter when they come to like the US. I have experience only in the US. I cannot speak on other parts of the world. If you're an international student in Australia or the UK, I do not know if you have a similar experience, but I think to an extent, some of the things I'm going to talk about would apply to you. So stick to your screen. Don't go anywhere. Do not touch. If it's on radio, they say do not touch that dial. Okay, but yeah, don't go anywhere. I think that some of the things I'm going to talk about will apply to you because the trials I'm going to talk about, it's not necessarily what you find every day. Usually when people make videos about international students, it's almost always a technical aspect of it, like, oh, what to expect, visa interviews, visa this, it's almost always about that. But hey, I'm all about the softer side of life, the part that nobody really talks about. It's the not invincible, but invisible part of the international student experience. When you talk about international students, you perceive them as people who are really smart, people who are intelligent and who are able to follow guidelines, follow rules in order to like get a visa, in order to get a school or get into a school. But you don't talk about their other experiences. One of those experiences I'll start with is the culture shock. Deep breath, deep breath. Deep breath. Okay. It's a really, really great cultural adjustment coming from another part of the world to, a different part of the world that you're not very used to. I'll use myself as an example. I came from Nigeria to the US. Prior to that, I have not been to the US. In fact, I have not been outside of Nigeria. Okay, that should show you, the kind of perspective that I have. But my perspective is not very narrow because, again, most of the experiences that I have about the outside world is from movies and, from TV shows and all of that. So again, the media, and by the way, I studied media, if you don't know, the communication person. Anyway, that's by the way. But again, my consumption of cultural artifacts, cultural expectations, everything culture is from the media, from TV. But I haven't had, at the time, I hadn't had like a first-hand experience of what it means to be immersed into another culture. Now, there are two things. If you are an international student, I think the two options available to you once you move is either to assimilate or to adjust. Okay. Personally, this is just a personal preference. I do have a problem with assimilation, but we'll talk about it some other time. But I am much more for adjustment, where you understand or you get to understand your environment and then you just make slight adjustment to it. Not throwing away your culture, of course not, but just try to adjust to it. One of the challenges or one of the culture shocks that I had is referring to people by their first names. It was a culture shock. I knew this, okay? I knew this coming into the US that, the US is very, in a way, informal. So they don't really make you do the Mr., the Mrs., the doctor and all of that. But I knew that. But having to now experience it was a different thing. I struggled with it. I struggled so much. A professor would tell me, hey, refer to me, call me Jim. And I'm like, Jim. Hey, me, you are old enough to be my father. How can I call you Jim? I felt it was a bit disrespectful. And so, and even till now, honestly, I do not think I refer to anybody by their first name. It's always Dr. This, Dr. That, Mr. This, Mr. That. Because again, cultural for me, and so it was hard to, or it's still hard to adjust to that. But I'm learning. It's one step at a time. I'm learning to, sometimes make exceptions for, especially for people who insist on you calling them by their first name. All right, so there are some people that come and this song, no matter where you go, remember the road that will take you or that will lead you home. Thomas or whatever it is. So that song. There are some people that come and they do forget the road that leads them home. Okay. There are people, and I've experienced some of these people where they don't really want anything to do with their home culture. When they come here, all they want to do is assimilate. And that's why I say I have a problem with assimilation. Okay, all they want to do is just not associate with their people and associate with white people or African Americans, or just nothing wrong with that. But I am just a strong advocate of, do not forget the road that leads you home, and always associate with your own people. It is helpful. It is very helpful also to adjust. There are going to be a lot of different points that you have to adjust to, or a lot of experiences that you have to adjust to. For example, when somebody invites you for lunch or something, hold your money. Hold it. Do not, under any circumstance, think that they are going to pay for your lunch. They invited you, yes, but hold your own money so you don't go and embarrass your ancestors, because nobody's going to really pay for you, okay? If someone invites, except they say otherwise, except they say so, that, I'm going to pay for dinner, or I'm going to pay for lunch, then yeah, sure. But if somebody invites you for like a birthday celebration, hold your cash, okay? So you don't go and embarrass yourself. Trust me, I learned the hard way. Okay, another trial that I will talk about is, again, cultural. I cannot really cover the whole spectrum of cultural expectations and culture. It's so broad. But I also want to talk or touch on the social academic life balance. This is a point a lot of international students struggle with, or this is something they struggle with, because you come to the US or come to school abroad or anything, but the expectation is that you excel. And you don't just excel, but you excel exceedingly, okay? So most people find that they are, caught in a cocoon. They really just have this what they call it, a triangular life, right? So there isn't any social activity whatsoever. It's always school, and for those that go to church, home. Okay. And, for those that don't go to church, whatever it is that you use, or except some people, maybe it's just a line, point A, point B, no point C. So for most people, it's really hard to find that social balance. Also because, you're in a new culture. You don't even know the social activities that are available for you to do, right? In Nigeria, for example, if you get tired of staying indoors, you can just, go outside and, just do one or two, oblay or whatever. Not that you cannot oblay here. You can, definitely, if you find like the right places to be, like, so it's really important. What I'm trying to say is it's really important to find those social points, or some people, for me, I think what I tried to do was I find and I didn't even know that I like this, so I didn't know. If I was in Nigeria, you told me, hey, take a walk in the park, I'll eye you and be like, walk, okay. But I find that I really enjoy taking a walk in the park, and it's helped me to distress. It's also important to join different organizations, right? So if you're here, it will help you if you join organization A, organization B. Just find things that you align with, things that align with your purpose, and peers that you can associate with, because that's really, really important. Book is not the I don't know, my mom would say be all and end all. Okay, book is not where it ends. It's really important to find balance. But also, talking about book, okay, when I came here, I'll tell you that it took me a while to get used to like the accents. So for example, for the first few weeks I was lost in class. I was like, what are they talking about? They talk so fast. It took me a while to get accustomed to that. It's something to keep at the back of your mind that, coming to class, the assignments are also a lot. The assignments are a lot. So it's good to keep in mind that, coming in newly, you might find it difficult to get accustomed to the accents, to get accustomed to, the speed of the assignment, the speed in which the semester is going, but I know that with time you would definitely adjust. There's also an expectation for international students because your status comes with a lot of expectations. One of it is you do not go below a certain threshold when it comes to your GPA. Okay, so I do not think a lot of international students struggle with this because I think that's top of their mind. Academics is way top before any other thing, but there are a few people that, would struggle with that. So it's just good to keep it at the back of your mind that you need to be at a certain threshold and you should work hard towards maintaining that threshold or, superseding that threshold. If you need help, I am sure a lot of universities have resources, library resources like tutorials, and you could also form a study group that can help you through that challenge, okay, or through that trial. All right. Enough talk about academics and social life. Let's talk about social support. Okay, social support is one big thing. This is because most people do not necessarily have a lot of social support once they move in, especially those that have children or, just people that they take care of. There is not a lot of social support here. So if you don't have money to hire a nanny, it's going to be really, really difficult for you. Unlike Nigeria, there is a lot of social support. There's a lot of community. You have a child, you have someone, your mother or somebody just around, even a neighbor that can take care of your child for you. It's not the same here. There's also a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of loneliness here for an international student. It's just not the same back home. Like if it's back home, I get bored, I can go ahead, I can talk to my neighbor, just chat with my neighbor. A lot of the times it's a secluded individualistic society. So it's either you form your own association or, you just have to find it. You just have to find it, honestly. So it's good to be prepared to know that, okay, this is what I'm going to face. And I mentioned earlier that you can join associations in order to have peers and have friends, and so that really helps. There's also the community difference. What we call community is really close knit. In the US, maybe it's a bit different. Community. It's basically what I've been saying. You have to form, I don't want to call it artificial communities, but a lot of us left home, right? We left families who are really close to us, who we can talk to about anything, but you don't have those friends here. You can only talk to them via phone, and sometimes it's the time difference is also something to consider. Maybe when you feel down and you feel like talking, it's already midnight in Nigeria and you have to wait till the next day to talk to somebody. So that can be challenging, okay? There's also the never-ending cycle. It's just never-ending. From one cycle to another, you start with visa applications. You start with school applications. You start with visa applications. You just applications upon applications upon applications. Okay, it's a never-ending cycle, and sometimes I find it tiring because I feel like that's life, anyways. Like, you have to constantly apply for stuff, but for an international student, it's always, about the visa. So you finish, let's assume you come in for a master's degree. After 2 years, actually before the end of that 2 years, you have to start applications for maybe an OPT, right? After your OPT, you have to do applications for a H1B. After your, it's just a cycle upon cycle. You have to think about green card. That's if you don't want to go back to Nigeria. Maybe you want to have work experience in the US. But again, if you have plans to go back home, to get that work experience, that's fantastic. You don't necessarily have to deal with all of the never-ending cycles of applications. But again, if you're looking to change your status in the US, just be prepared. Application galore. Okay, so it's kind of a never-ending cycle, and it can get really frustrating. One of the ways it can get frustrating, this is not necessarily about application cycles, it's the jobs, okay? It's applying for jobs, and you might see like a really good job that you're a great fit, and then they tell you, you need a visa work authorization. And as an international student, you don't necessarily have that. I think it's even much more difficult for international students that are in non-STEM fields. It is tough because your OPT is only 1 year, and employers willing to give out, positions to only 1 year OPT, they are really few. So something to consider. Okay. And okay, now I'm trying to round up here. So I'm going to talk about the ultimate fear. And this is really serious because to a large extent, I do have this fear. It's not an easy one to talk about, but it's something to talk about. It's really important. Now, a lot of us, when we left home, our main aim was to feed home. That in Nigeria, that's what we call, or they call it, you leave home to feed home, right? Our reason for wanting to seek, in our view, greener pastures is to provide for, our parents or those at home, right? Or we want to make create a better life for ourselves. It is really disheartening. And I think that this is, if not for a lot of international students, for most, right? Or for a number, I think that's the foremost fear that most people have, is that before you actualize that dream, you tend to lose people back home. In fact, before losing people back, there's also this is not a fear, it's just missing out. Okay, before I talk about, losing people back home, even though I've touched on it, there is a fear, maybe not a fear, but there is a nudging at the back of our minds that we are missing out on life, missing out on the lives of people that matter to us. Okay, for international students that are not able to travel back home, on a regular basis, sometimes there are birthdays that happen, there are weddings that occur, anniversaries, all of these things we miss out. During the holidays, if you don't have family around, you're all alone. You're missing out on the lives of your friends, right? Your friends are moving on with their lives, and you are here. You're just like, oh, I wish I was there. I personally, I do have nieces and nephews that were born after I had moved here. And to an extent, I do feel, sometimes I feel like these people might not know me. Like by the time I go back, I will be a stranger, so there's that worry as well. But then the ultimate fear is, I think for me, losing people back home. If you leave home to leave home, your one prayer is that the people that you leave to feed should be there by the time you actualize that dream. But reality and life doesn't make it so sometimes. A lot of people, well, not a lot, but some people do lose family, they lose their parents. It's really disheartening because you miss out on key moments of their life for so long, right? So sometimes you don't get to experience their last moments. The last memory, physical memory you have of them would be maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So you tend to miss out on those key moments. And it's a really legitimate fear that sometimes you might not get to actualize that dream of feeding home. Okay. I feel like this is a sad reality. It's a sad reality. It's a game of a chance. It's a prayer. Nobody wants to experience that. It's not anybody's prayer, but sadly, sometimes it happens that way, that the last time you see a loved one might actually be the last time you ever see them. You don't get to share their last moments with them. Sometimes I do know that sometimes I receive calls and my heart starts beating for no good reason. I'm like, oh my God, I hope it's not. Especially when I receive calls in the middle of the night, right? I'm like, my heart just skips a bit, because it's not a good fear. It's definitely not. And if you're a Christian, I'm sure you'll be in your mind, you'll be telling me, bind that spirit of fear. I should bind it, but legitimately, it's something that we have to face. It's a fear that we have. It's a trial, I'll say. And so that's why this is called a trial of international. So that my hope and my prayer is nobody gets to face that. Nobody gets to not actualize their dreams of having to take care of their loved ones. Because that's the reason why we struggle, or we do whatever we do here, or trying to make our lives better. And I do hope that nobody gets to experience that. It is a really, really, really tough journey being an international student, trying to make a better life for yourself as well as those back home. My hope is we all get to have that reality. We all get to make good of our lives and help those back home. What else can I say? I do hope that soon I will leave the status of international student and I, would have actualized a dream in the nearest future. Okay? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Pot of Beans podcast. If you found this helpful in any way, I hope that you share this episode to your friends, your loved ones, other international students. If this is something that will be interesting to them, please share, subscribe. Please, if you go to Spotify and you listen and you see this podcast, please, I'm begging, please subscribe. Okay, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts about being an international student, if you're one, and what other trials you have that I probably didn't cover. I am really excited that I was able to record this episode. I do hope that you got one or two from it. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.